Today I'm going to show you how I make a hollow bead. First, I make 2 small spacer beads, and sometimes I do a better job at it than others. And then once I've got those sort of how I like them, I start building a disc on each one of them. Now there's a lot of different ways to make hollow beads. This is just the way that works best for me. And the trick to doing this, making these discs on the spacer beads, is to not let the other disc get too cold while you are building up your other disc. And so sometimes maybe you have to stop in the middle and kind of reheat, or maybe you want to build your discs up in stages, which is kind of what I'm doing with this one. It's not always how I do it. It just kind of depends on how it's working for me on any given bead. And once you get the disc to a size that'll work, I'm going to start shaping them into cups, facing or cupping towards each other. So I'm going to make sure the one I'm not going to be working on first is nice and heated through. And then I'm going to get this one heated up so that the glass starts to move. I don't want to do it when it's too cold, because I can break my bead release trying to move the glass too much, trying to manhandle it too much. But you don't want to get it too warm, or else then you're going to lose control of your glass. So I do the same thing to the other side. And just kind of gently go back and forth until you're happy with what you've got. And the other thing is that I want the edges to touch, but I'm okay if there are holes in the seam where they meet. Okay. Now, it's pretty ugly right now, and it's really not going to look much better until after I heat it up. So what I'm going to do next is I am going to make sure it's got a nice little heat soak to it, and then I'm going to take it out of the flame and let it cool down a bit while I get a blob of glass going on the rod. While I'm doing this, say hello to my 13-year-old son who's videotaping this for me today. He's also the producer and telling me what to do. Alright, so I got a nice blob going, and I'm just going to start swiping it onto the glass. And it gets to be a challenge sometimes. It's easier to do this on a fatter mandrel where you can really kind of control it better, but for jewelry making purposes, I find better to have them on a smaller mandrel. So it's better to think like a bead maker and a jewelry maker at the same time. So once I've got the seam covered with this swipe of glass here, I am going to heat the glass along that seam. And I'm going to kind of mash it down. Now I don't want to get the whole thing hot, just that area where I added the glass. And I'm going to go around in the circle. And the reason why I do that is to make sure that the glass that I just added to cover the seam is covering the entire seam and any potential holes that might, still be peeking out of there. Like I said, this is not a pretty process. It's not elegant and may not even be efficient. I don't really know. It's just what works for me. And then once I've got that part of the bead done, I'm going to melt everything in. And at the same time, what's going to happen is, because I let the bead cool down a bit before I sealed the holes, is the air inside the pocket that I created with the 2 discs is going to start to expand, and it's going to make the bead larger, and the hole inside the bead, the giant bubble inside the bead is going to get larger, and that's what gives you the hollow bead. So the trick to doing this is to make sure that you get the glass evenly heated through, and you want it to be kind of hot, but you don't want it to get so hot that you lose control of the glass. Sometimes I'll feel the glass like it's going to start slipping away from me, and I'll either take it out of the heat, kind of like it kind of feels right now, or I'll move further out in the flame where it's not as hot. So I'm just kind of twisting it, and you can see how the bead has expanded and it's nice and smooth now. I prefer my hollow beads to be a little rounder usually. This one isn't horrible, but a lot of times they come out saucer shaped. So I'll take it out of the flame and let it get kind of a skim on the edges or on the surface, and then I will gently shape it. What happened?
Nim.
What'd she do?
She keeps hitting the tripod. So I'm trying to get her out of the way.
She's helping. Is it still recording?
Yes, it is.
That little break was brought to you courtesy of my golden retriever. Alright, and it's done. And that's a hollow bead.